Hello everyone. In this tutorial I wanted to go into different lighting techniques or different ways to light up your scene and create realistic looking lighting. There are a lot of things to this, and it's a very important topic, so I guess this will be a very long tutorial in compared to others, but I'm just going to do it anyway because it's there are very many nice options. For this I downloaded this interesting looking sculpture. I downloaded this from Thingiverse, and the reason I chose this one is because you get very nice shadows along these fabric foldings, so that way you can get a better idea of what different lighting options do with shadows like this one. So that should be interesting. Well, there are basically, I would categorize the different lighting options you have in ArtFlution in three types. There's the built-in light sources that you can use in ArtFlution, like directional lighting, spotlights, point lights, and then you have emissive textures. Those are textures that give off light, and there's something called diffuse lighting. So I want to go into all of them, and I'll start with the built-in light sources. So yeah, I believe in the previous tutorial I already showed you how to make directional light, but I'm just going to do it again. I often like to create a light source behind the camera, but of course if you need another angle for your rendering, it's all possible, and it will look probably just as good. The way you make a directional light is you click and you drag, and that will give it the direction. However, it will only give it the direction in this plane here. So if you look at the light here, it's still pointing along this axis. So I just rotate it a little bit to give it kind of more like it is coming from the top. So basically what this type of light source is, it kind of like simulates sunlight. So it has it generates parallel rays of light that are all coming from this direction. It all follows the same lines, if you will. And therefore the position of this light source doesn't really matter, because it will just create a whole wall, so to speak, of rays of light that are all how do you say it, that are all facing the same direction. So let's just render this for a moment. Again, I have anti-aliasing on, I have global illumination set to ambient occlusion with 4 rays, and that will do just fine for this tutorial. So as you can see, this creates I think a very pretty render. What I want to say here about directional lights, they are very good if you want to have very sharp shadows, like for instance these folds. You get a very distinct and sharp shadow, and often this is desirable if you have an object with like a bump map or something, and that will really bring out the best of the bump map, so to speak. You can really see the effect of the bump map. What I often like to do when I create a rendering with directional lights is I tend to use 2 light sources at least. I'll also make a light source over here, and that I give a slightly more angled direction so it comes even more from above, so to speak. And I'll give it a lower intensity, and I'll give it a bluish color so as to simulate the effect of the blue sky. Let's see how this looks. Just adds a little bit. As you can see, the intensity is still too high. I would set it to very low, just to get it a little bit more. How do you say it? It just adds a little bit more to the scene, I think. So that was directional lighting. Of course, there are 3 light sources available in our solution. There's a directional lights. If you click on the scene, it will create a point light. I'll just show you how that looks. It's just one point in space where rays of light are coming out from all directions, and the light source itself is not visible. So if you want the light source to be visible, I recommend you use an emissive texture, and I'm going to get into that later. So yeah, this is the point light. It's pretty straightforward, and you can play around with the parameters here, like how fast the light is decaying and the radius of the source. But I'll leave that to you to experiment with. And another thing is a spotlight. For instance, you can create a spotlight by holding down Control and dragging. And I'm just going to make a spotlight from the top of from the bottom up. And the spotlight, well, it's pretty straightforward to it. Shines a bundle of light in the direction you've chosen. It's not the same as directional light, because that creates all parallel lines from every direction, I believe. And this really makes a select beam of light. Alright, so that's enough about light sources in Art Evolution, because I think there are very much better ways to light up your scene and create more realistic lighting. I'm going to get into it now. First off, I want to show you emissive textures, which are really cool if you want to have the light source visible in your render. So let's create a sphere, and I'm going to make an emissive texture to make the sphere light up. Let's put it over here. Alright, let's go to textures, and as you can see I already have the metal texture. It's, because I want to have this metal sphere here so you can kind of see what's going on in the environment. I always like to do that if I'm testing things out. I always have this metal sphere here so I can get a feel of what's going on in the rest of the environment. But anyway, let's just make a simple uniform texture, and we call that emissive. And I'll just leave all these parameters the way they are, except for the emissive color. which I will set to just white, pure white. And yes, there it is. And I'm going to assign it to this sphere. And we'll see how it looks. You can clearly see what it does. It makes the object itself generate light. So that's a very nice light source, I think, to have. You see. However, this is usually not the way I like to make emissive textures. And what I mean by that is I don't usually make it as a uniform texture, because it has a little drawback, because you can't get the value, you can't make it brighter than this. This is the brightest it can be, because you set the emissive color to white. It can't go whiter than pure white. So what I always do is I make a 2D procedural texture, and I'm going to cover these more in a later tutorial. So this is a whole topic in and of itself, because you can do a lot with these procedural textures. But for now, I just want to show you how to do this. Well, these boxes here, they represent, of course, the same parameters as you saw at in the how is it called? Uniform texture. Only you can put in different functions and all kind of mathematical stuff you can put in there. So this is basically the same now as what I did in the uniform texture. Let's rename this. Yeah, Emissive 2 is good. But when you're using a 2D procedural, you can use all kinds of mathematical manipulations with it. For instance, you can scale it, and that's exactly what I want. Let's have a number here. So I'm scaling this white value up. Right now it's at 0, so it will be black basically. And if you set it to 1, it will just be white, but you can set it higher than that. You can, for instance, go up to as high as you like. So this will be 3 times as bright as the other emissive texture that we had before. Let's just crank it up a little bit more so you can really see the difference. This will probably be a lot, but oh well. And let's assign the other emissive texture. And let's see how it looks. You can probably tell already that it's a bit brighter. And of course, in this way, the sky is the limit, so you can make it basically as bright as you want. So yeah. And another quick thing here, you can see that probably you can see that it is very grainy, and the reason why this is because this is due to the global illumination. So you can if you wanted this to be more smoothed out, you can increase the rays to sample the environment, set it to a higher value, and that gets rid of this graininess. You can also apply a post render noise reduction filter to it. that was just a quick note aside. So that's basically all I wanted to show you with emissive textures. Of course, you can also add a color to this, to the emissive color, and that will, of course, create a different color of lighting. Excuse me. Alright, there is one other thing you can do with emissive textures, and that's a really cool option. Let's just hide the sphere. We don't need it anymore. And that's called diffuse lighting. And I always like to use diffuse lighting because it, I think it gives a very nice feel to the whole scene. And there are basically two ways I like to use this. You can just use an emissive texture, or you can use an HDRI image. And I'm going to get into that later, but first let's focus on the emissive texture. So let's just edit this procedural emissive texture again. Let's just scale it to 1, so that it won't overlight the scene, because it might get too bright. So the way to do this is you can go to Scene and go to Environment. This brings up this box with options. And the environment, as you can see in the sphere when I rendered it, you probably saw blackness here. That's because the environment color is set to black. So of course you can edit this, but you can also assign a texture to it, and that way you can get the environment to reflect on metallic objects and stuff, so it looks more realistic, because of course if you have this blackness it's kind of ugly. But for now I'll just use the emissive texture, and what it does is instead of giving the environment the black texture, it gives it the emissive texture. So lighting comes from all points of the environment. So, oh yeah, there's one more thing. Well, let me first render it so you can see what's going on. As you can see, it's very bright. So one way to counteract this is to go to the textures and scale the emissive color down. But what I find to be very good looking is if you set the ambient color a little bit lower, and this basically ties into the global illumination thing, where the color of the reflecting light it's now scaled down, it's now a darker value, and for diffuse lighting this will look better, I think, because it will create more shadows that are more clear and stuff, and it won't overlight the scene like that. So let's see how it looks now. As you can see, it's a lot better. At least I think it's a lot better. And as you can see also in the metallic object, the environment here is now not black anymore, it's now white. So this looks basically like a very overcast day. It's like a grim and rainy day, something like that. So this is what it produces. As you can see, the shadows are a lot softer and a lot less sharp. So that's what I really like about this. And overall, I think the lighting, when you use diffuse lighting, it I think it looks quite realistic. But there's an even better way to make it even more realistic, and that's to use high dynamic range images. So I'm going to get into those now. Let's create a new texture, and I'm going to create another procedural 2D texture. And I'm going to call it HDRI, which is short for High Dynamic Range Image. So as the name implies, I'm going to use an image for this. So I'm going to patterns, and I'm going to get into these patterns later on, because you can do really cool things with them. Let's double click this block to bring up the options, and we can click here to set an image. So I already loaded up some HDRI images that I want to show you. Yeah, I'll just show how all of this looks. And again, I want to have control over how bright the scene is going to look with this, so I'm going to scale these values down. Yeah, I forgot to mention what the HDR images are. HDRI images. They are basically images which have extra information about lighting. So they have lighting information built into them. So let's make this a little bigger so you can see what it is. I always like to use this HDR image for little objects, because it gives it gives a nice feel to it and stuff. And you can, if you Google HDR images, you can probably find similar HDR images on the internet for free. I downloaded this for free somewhere, and I may post a link in the description if I can find it again, because it's been a while since I downloaded this one. And just to give you some examples, here are some other images that I like to use. And by the way, this is what do you say? It's a spherical image, so it doesn't show up right here because it's stretching. But that's because we still have to edit the mapping later when we assign the texture. Now I'm going to get into that later, and probably also in later tutorials, because it's quite important. But anyway, enough about this. Let's just go with the image that I wanted to go with. This is a nice evening sunset. And I think the intensity is good enough, and we can always change it here later if we want to. So let's click OK. And go to the environment settings. And now instead of texture emissive, let's use the texture diffuse. I'm going to choose the HDRI. And I want to click on edit mapping so I can choose how I would map this texture to my environment. So this is the representation of the environment. It's just a sphere, and inside the sphere is the scene. So basically, the sphere is projecting inward. I will get into how to use the texture mapping in later tutorials as well, but for now I'm just going to go with spherical, because of course the environment is a spherical object, so it will look best this way. And as you can see, it's now no longer stretching or anything, it's just mapping quite nicely. And you can, in here you can adjust the rotation. For instance, if you put a different value here in the Y, you can rotate the source of the light. For instance, the sun is here, so if I don't like the direction of the light source, there's a, of course this is a bigger light, so there's light coming from this whole area because it's a high dynamic range image. But of course the area where the sun is gives off more light, as it would in real life, of course. So you can rotate this around to have the position of the sun somewhere else. That would affect where the lighting comes from in your scene. But I found that this this position is already good for what I want to do. So let's click OK. And click OK. And for HDRI images, I also find it better to use a lower value of the ambient color. It's just for when you're using diffuse lighting, this will make it look better. Alright, so let's render this. And there's one thing I should tell you about here, is if you click on the output tab. No, wait. Advanced, no, I think there used to be an option here that says HDR lighting on or something, but I think they removed it because, I don't know, there used to be an option here, but it's no longer there, so it doesn't matter. Also, in advanced options, there's extra smoothing for global illumination here, and you can extra smooth the environment. And the reason why you would want to do that is when the environment is not that high a resolution, it will create how do you say it, a little bit grainy lighting effect or something. So you can smooth that out later. If you experience this problem, you can set this to a higher value, and that will smooth out the environment and thus creating a smoother lighting effect. Alright, let's render this. And as you can already see, this creates a nice atmosphere of nice warm evening sun, and you can see it in the metallic object as well here. It is now reflecting an image instead of just plain one color. So I always tend to use HDRI images because it gives the most realistic thing, and also when reflecting in shiny and metallic objects or water or whatever, it gives off realistic reflections. So the only thing here is now the floor, which doesn't have a texture. And for instance, if you add some grass here or whatever kind of texture you want, this will create even more realistic reflection, because this will have more to reflect, because this is just one plain texture. Okay. One other thing here is that I didn't map the environment just right, because you can see here this black line, and that's ideally I don't want this, of course. So what I could do is scale the texture here a little bit down so that it overlaps a bit with the edge of the floor, so that I won't have to see this ugly black line. Alright, that was a pretty long tutorial about different light sources and different ways to light up your scene. And I think I've covered basically everything. At least I've covered everything that I know about it. But when I found out about HDRI images, HDRI lighting, I basically stuck with it, and I'm very happy with the way it looks always. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and have fun playing around with this.